I'm wondering if you could clarify on the connection between scriptural approach to controlling or restraining the sense and the more psychological approach to seeing and understanding how the ego operates. For example, it seems like quite a different approach to not allow oneself to be taken for a ride by one's emotions through refusal, which is how I understand the scriptural prescription, and not going on a ride through seeing the mechanism of projections. For example, knowing that my dislike of someone points to not an acknowledged part of myself. The first feels forceful and less effective, whereas the second is effortless, if it can be accomplished. Or again, it don't see scripture's reference to shame structures or other such things. So this psychological approach seems quite important, and yet doesn't seem to be addressed scripturally, except obliquely. Is this addressing something different and new, perhaps due to the modern form of ego blockage? Or is it something old that is simply being put into modern language, or something else? I appreciate any clarity here.
All right, Galen, good. I mean, basically, the basis of our current spirituality has been come from the collective wisdom of Scripture. So Scripture carries through the ages teachings that are available for those who awaken. And without that, we would not have had a languaging or a way of holding awakening. And in the modern era, we have evidence of that as we incarcerate them or give them medications, or, they take up compensating structures so they don't have to experience the awakening process. So we would have lost the opportunity of this era. So definitely we rest on the foundation of Scripture, but Scripture is not, it is the remnant, the relics of the past structures that were all mankind could receive or give when they were created. So if we're looking at scriptures that are 100 years old, or teachings that were dharmas that were 300 years old, and we try to bring them into present time, then what we're doing is we're putting a cage on the possibilities of our time, because there is evolution. But back then, scriptures didn't know about evolution. They thought the person was what they are until they die. What was determined by their astrology at birth is how they died. There was no evolution. There were simply physical developmental stages, children, adolescents, adult, later adult, but there wasn't evolution possible. There wasn't transformation possible. This idea of transformation that we take for granted because we were a generation that's come after Darwin, who talked about the fact that everything is evolving in this creation to create a more perfect relationship with itself. We would have not had this concept of psychology even. The fact is, Freud was very rigid in the early psychological structures. It was Jung who saw that it was pointing to an evolution. It was pointing to an unfolding of what's possible, that human beings even had the potential to become different than what they were born into. It's a new concept. It's probably less than 100 years old. Its wideness is actually now everywhere, so that we don't remember how rigid it was about rights and wrongs and sin and virtue. Because that's all they could do, was manage the beast, the animal of the human being, and leave it behind in your spiritual awakening, or give yourself over to a higher power that you're not possibly worthy of. But we're in a whole new era. That's a whole new paradigm. And psychology is the best that human beings have been able to create in terms of the unfolding, evolving possibility, which is the truth of existence. And it's the truth of each of us, that we can collaborate or resist our own evolution. So this is an extraordinary time, and it's why these spiritual awakenings are happening so much over the world. It's not just that it's happening, it's that we can recognize it happening, and we can take this awakening and give guidance for people in terms of integrating it in a way that was never possible for humanity, except for in very small monasteries or ashrams or individuals. until now. So we are off the charts. We can create a new order of consciousness. We can create a new paradigm for spiritual living. We can create a new paradigm for human life because we're now awake. So the best of psychology has integrated spirituality. And you'll watch. Pretty much spirituality will integrate the best of psychology. And it will become this joint. I mean, we're doing this in our work right now. We're integrating the best of what man has been able to produce through the evolution of psychology, our self-inquiry and developing of our actualizing our possibilities and coming into life with more connection, more relationship, more love, more joy, more happiness, is obviously very close to where spirituality would be should we truly awake and integrate it in our lives. So these two are coming together. So scriptures carry a pointer to basic, fundamental, archetypal, unchanging truths. That there are things like karma, consequences. If you kill someone, if you envious of someone, if you are lie or cheat or steal or betray the order of your world, these are considered kind of like archetypal designs that allowed human beings to organize so that mankind could progress, and to some extent, even though we were not aware that we were progressing. But the evidence was society was evolving. But any one time, any one 50-year period, any one generation may not notice that it's part of a current of evolving. But from this perspective we have now, we can begin to see that we are a stage that is the outcome of previous stages that mankind have gone through, and that there are new stages unfolding as we speak. So this born in the middle of the story is something I share as one of my talks, because we're born in ignorance. We don't know the past or the future. We don't have the awareness of the possibility of evolution. We're just trying to come into existence as a person. And that's where most human beings rest. They don't go any bigger than that domain of what that defines the safety and the boundaries of their ego. But when you awaken, those boundaries fall away. And you begin to sense this evolving purpose, not only in the course of your life, but in the course of the lives of others, and in the course of the unfolding of civilization. So we use all tricks and tricks. We use anything that can be applied. There's nothing sacred or unsacred. All of it becomes part of the means of unfolding the opportunity of what we're becoming, because the past is no longer the measure. The guilt and sin and shame and blame, these are errors. They always were, in terms that created the denial and the resistance that would block the evolutionary unfolding. But once we get rid of those, then yes, it's an open possibility, but then how do we organize this? Because a possibility without limits can become chaos unless there's an underwriting current purpose behind that unfolding that can be clear, so that we can take this freedom and apply it to something that will serve the million of generations of humanity that have yet to be born. We live in a different context than the one human beings have been living in up until now. And Galen, you're part of that. You're all part of that. You are all, you're all being informed, empowered, educated, because we are the new humanity. We are the new beings. We're the new version of humans. Sure, Aurobindo called them the supermental beings. That's what you are. You are becoming conscious of this purpose and this manifesting principle that you are in a practical and real way that you can bring first in your own healing and transformation, but then for others and into the world. Yeah. There you go.